what I just want to do is go through some new resources we put on the website and explain what they are, how you can use them, and how you can access them, and then we'll take it from there. So all of you who are in this business know there's a growing demand for equine assisted services and alternative provision. When I talk about equine assisted services, it stretches all the way from the left-hand side to therapy, to on the right-hand side well-being, and then in the middle equine assisted learning. The Rosettes will support all of that. It depends on how you want to do it. The majority of the people we're dealing with within the ABRS are in the learning, the well-being space, and we've got one or two riding schools who are in the therapy space. Obviously, to be in the therapy space, you need to have a properly regulated practitioner who can provide you the underpinning competence. And then the other bit is there's the need for some structured evidence-based programs. So when you're dealing with local authorities in particular and schools, and to some degree parents, they want to see that what you're offering has some structure around it. And we've tried to aim at that. And then what we are looking at really is small group individual learning that can often be done midweek. Often involves horses, but doesn't necessarily involve riding horses. So that's the kind of opportunity. So what we've offered or what we've produced is something that's about a ground-based learning program. So within the Advanced Rosettes, there's nothing ridden, is designed around small group delivery, 1, 2, 3 people, maybe 4. It's individually paced. And I've done that because many of the individuals that you deal with in this space have got learning difficulties. So I've tried to do it in a way that will allow to cope with people who've got learning neurodiversity or other stuff. So it's designed to be individually paced, and it's about developing a relationship with the individual as we go through, and I'll explain that in more detail. What it is not a riding test system. It's not performance driven, and it's not really designed. It's not really designed for large group application.
And I'm everybody else can see it. Sorry, I'll just do without pictures.
Can you go? What? Can you go, please? Okay. Just somebody's talking in the background. Let me just. Okay, all right. So that's what the program is. So where does it fit in? This really fits in around the alternative provision market, homeschooling, and confidence well-being programs. I've aimed these rosettes at Key Stage 3, so that's 11 to 16-year-olds, but they're good for Key Stage 4 and for adults. If you're dealing with younger kids, many of our schools use our existing rosettes, which are very much more simple. But this is fairly and squarely aimed at 11 to 16, which is where most of the alternative provision actually occurs. And what we're trying to do is get kids to do several things. We want them to improve their observational skills, so looking at the horse, looking at the circumstances they're in, and we want them to emotionally regulate, because what horses do is they need to be in a space where people are calm and quiet. And so what we're trying to make the learners understand that emotional regulation is quite important. And that's also key for many of these individuals who've got their own challenges. We want them to think a little bit about decision making, sensible, responsible decision making, and then taking responsibility not just for the horse, but for themselves and for other people around the horse. So those are the 4 things that sit within the rosettes. And then, of course, there are 20 rosettes. There's quite a large number of them, and they've been designed to do observe, understand, action, responsibility. That's the thread through them. Or, if I say it more simply, looking, noticing, understanding, and then making good decisions. That's what we've tried to impart through the rosettes. And I'll show you some of the syllabi as we go through, and you'll see what I mean. the 20 rosettes have been split into 4 sections, each of 5 rosettes. The first one is all about understanding horses. The second one's all about safe practice and daily care. The third's about physical health and well-being, and then the last is welfare, thinking, responsibility. There is some order through them. So if you look at understanding horses, 1 to 5, there is a logical order that goes from 1 to 5, and in the same for all of them. And some of them do rely on earlier rosettes, but you don't have to do the rosettes in order if you don't want to. If you want to pick out one from safe practice, you can do. There's nothing not to do that. You might just have to think a bit about something that went on before and make sure you cover it. So the understanding horses bit covers reading their behavior, understanding their emotions, and understanding how horses learn. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that the riders or the learners understand horses, not just ride them. That's what we've tried to get out of those first 5 rosettes. The second 5 is about safe handling and leading, yard routines and working with others in a yard environment. So we're looking for safer riders and reduced risk. The third rosette, third set is physical health and welfare. So that's there's a bit on feeding and digestion, movement and turnout, hoof care and comfort. So we're looking for everyday better care decisions that we're looking for. And bear in mind, you can see from these there's quite a lot in them because we are dealing with a slightly older age group of child, 11 to 16. And we are trying to touch in areas of the national curriculum, and I'll come back to that as well. And then welfare thinking responsibility covers welfare frameworks, risk awareness, responsibility and teamwork. And what we're looking to try and develop is mature, reliable riders. When I say riders, in most cases, this is really learners or people who deal with horses. The way I've structured it, but you don't have to do it this way, I've structured each rosette to be delivered over 3 structured sessions, and each session follows the same learning cycle. So a taught input, some guided observation, some applied learning, and then some reflection. So I'm trying to do learn, see, do, think. That's what I'm trying to do through. So now, if when you look at it, you think, doing this over 3 sessions is too much, and want to do it over 2, that's entirely up to you. Nothing in this is preordained. These are resources for you to use, and if you want to use them in a slightly different way, you can do. And I'll explain that a bit more when we look at some real live rosette stuff. I've tried to link them to the national curriculum, so science, English, and PSHE, and I've also done everything so it links to the 5 domains of horse welfare. So I've done this because when you're dealing certainly with schools and with parents, they want to see that there is some educational input. This is alternative provision. It's not an after-school club. So I've tried to make sure that you can evidence some linkage in what you're doing to the national curriculum. And then the assessment approach is really, it's an ongoing observation type approach. It's individual, and there's no formal test. There are, for each of these, there's somewhere between 5 and 6 competencies, and then what I'm asking you to do is tick off when you've done 3 or 4 competencies, and that's fine. And again, you'll see that in a moment. I think there's quite a lot of benefits from the rosettes, at least I hope there is. It's the way I've tried to structure them. I've tried to benefit the learners, the horses, and the businesses, and your businesses. I've done it for the learners about confidence, self-regulation, communication, life skill type stuff. For the horses, I'm trying to make sure that what we do recognizes the horse's nature. And then for the business, obviously, you're looking at revenue streams, daytime provision, border client bases, that sort of stuff. So hopefully all the rosettes will hit all of those 3 areas. So the key message I've got is these rosettes are not about riding, but they're trying to develop people who will understand horses better and make good decisions. That's what I'm trying to do. So that's it. I will tell you, we won't do questions at the moment. What I'll do is I'll go to the rosettes, because that's really the testing, and show you exactly what they look like. And then we can go. So can you see the ABRS member page? Yep. Okay. All right. So if you go into test materials, you'll find it's laid out the progressive rider tests, which are 1 to 10 in ATE. I do recommend those, by the way. Do have a look at particularly ATE for younger riders, not young riders, but younger riders. A question care award, which are very good with volunteers, that sort of stuff. I put party party material in there, but we're talking about rosettes. And then the rosettes are split into 3 lots. There's the standard rosettes. I'll come back to those in a moment. There's some my first time rosettes, but there's the advanced rosettes. Let me go into those. Okay, so what I'll show you is I've got a rosette syllabus. Can you see that all right? Thumbs up if you can see that. Yeah. Okay, so the rosette syllabus is something that you can show to parents and you can show to local authorities. The first bit is a little bit of explanation. Then the first section, as you recall, I said was understanding horses. And what I've tried to do is put a little bit of explanation around what that really means. And then I go into each of the rosettes. So the first of those rosettes is understanding horse body language. And there are 5 syllabus objectives around that. And then the second rosette is herd behavior, social need. And there's 5 syllabus elements around that. Rosette 3 is how horses learn. And again, the syllabus objectives. The 4th one is pressure, release, and positive reinforcement. And the 5th one is choice, consent, and cooperation. Those 5 rosettes do link together in a fairly obvious way when you look at them. They do follow on, and I would recommend, if you're going to do these ones, you do them in the order 1 to 5, because they are self-reinforcing. The second one I said was safe practice and daily care. Again, a bit of description about what that's all about. And then the rosette 6 is routine and predictable care, safe handling and leading, understanding the horse's environment, working together around horses, and responsibility and readiness. So this is all about working in and around horses and doing it in the best possible way. The next group is physical health and welfare. Again, a little bit of description there. The first of those is nutrition and the horse digestive system, feeding the individual horse, the importance of movement, exercise, and rest, hoof care and soundness basics, and then temperature, comfort, and physical protection, all around things like rugging and that sort of stuff. The 4th one is welfare thinking responsibility. Again, some description there. Comfort, shelter, and environment. The 5 domains of horse welfare. Understanding risk, safety, and responsibility in an equine setting. Leadership, initiative, and responsible decision making. And then working together around people, horses, and systems. So that's what I've tried to do. So they're not trivial rosettes. I hope you'll see they're quite thoughtful rosettes. And for that reason, not necessarily the easiest to deliver, I have to say that. Okay, now let me then show you, I've got a workbook here. So you can give your learners a workbook, and it's got all the 20 rosettes in it. And then what it's got the outcomes. And then so if I look at Rosette 1, understanding horse body language, I'm saying you need three of those outcomes to have been achieved to be able to award the rosette. There's a comment and a date, and they're all the way through that. So you can so learners can just keep a track of where they are in the whole of that process. So then let me now show you what a rosette looks like. I won't go through all of them, but let me just take the first one. Let's say understanding body language. Well, maybe we'll do 2, and I'll just show you what it looks like. So this is what each rosette is, and there's a sheet for each rosette. So the first one, understanding horse body language, its abbreviated name is horse awareness. It's for 11 to 16-year-olds or adults, and I'm recommending 3 2-hour sessions. I've written what the rosette's about and some professional narrative if you were talking to a school about what this rosette is delivering. I've given the learning outcomes there. I've explained how it links to the 5 domains, and then what the curriculum links across science, English, PSH, in this case, maths. I then given the 4 teaching principles. So the key idea is horses communicate continuously through body language, not words. I've then given what at this level we're expecting learners to do. So we're not expecting learners to explain why behavior occurs, just to notice and to describe it. And then what they should understand. I've given some key knowledge that they should be taught explicitly, I can't say it. And then I move into the sessions, and I say each session has got a taught element, a guided element, and applied learning and reflection. So in session 1, seeing the whole horse, I've put it down as 2 hours. This is just my recommendations. You can do this in any way you want. I've given a session focus. I've given some taught input. So, the focus here is understanding the horses communicate continuously with body language and learning what to look at. So teach explicitly the horse communicates about words, behaviors, information, blah. I've given a teaching model, and so it goes through. I've got some, what you might use, some key messages. It then moves into the guided observation where you work with the learner and give them a bit more information. The teacher prompts learners to scan their horse, use the same neutral language, notice similarities and differences in horses. Then there's some applied stuff, so they try and use some of the stuff they've learned in some way. And then in the end, there's a reflection, because we should always reflect on learning at the end of the session. And so there are 3 sessions. They follow the same format for each of those sessions. So session 3, notice interaction, horse and people, and it's the same logical flow through each of these sessions. For your ABRS members, you can see all of this. It's all free. Just go into the Rosettes. You can download and look at it to your heart's content and decide whether it works for you. I then put some teachers' notes about differentiation and inclusion. I've put a note on resources, but I'll come back to resources in a moment. And then I've explained how you achieve the completion criteria. I've done this because you need to really be evidence to educators that you're not just doing this off the cuff, and there is some proper learning outcomes coming out of it. And then finally, I've got some progression notes. And in 1 to 5, I put a little table here explaining how 1 to 5 link together. So Rosette 1 is about awareness. So what is happening, notice and recognize, the learners observe. And you can see there's a logic going through to Rosette 5, where how do we explain this to others? So there is a logic through the 5 Rosettes. And then for each session, I've given you a worksheet. So worksheet 1, seeing how horses communicate body language. And I've explained what it's supposed to support, what the task is, and then how you might go about it. I said what to avoid. So, for example, avoiding labeling horse behavior as naughty, bad, or dangerous, encouraging guessing why a horse is behaving in a certain way. I've got some teacher notes, and then I've given some tasks, and then I've started to add resources towards the end. I'm not sure how much this. Yeah, so this one is what can we see? I've given some things you can cut out and use as you want. I've given some photographs which you can use in the classroom, certain behaviours, and then the same for worksheet 2. And there's some more, how you could do it, type stuff. Here's some horse ear positions, and the same for session 3, worksheet 3. I've put some stuff about how you could go about delivering this in the classroom. So that's that one. Let me go and find another one. Let's do nutrition, and you'll see exactly the same format in nutrition. The intent, the professional narrative, the learning outcomes, how it links to the curriculum, the core teaching principle, what to teach, and then the sessions. Understanding the digestive system is the first one. Session 2 is, where's session 2? Session 2, forage and feeding patterns. Session 3, recognizing digestive discomfort early. And then I've got, again, worksheets. And with those worksheets, there's tasks you can do. There's diagrams so kids can fill in. Some flashcards in this case. How food is digested. Why horses eat so much forage. Check of understanding flashcards. And you'll see the same in session 2. I've got more resources that you can use in delivering the lessons. So that brought in, let me just clip out of that. Stop sharing for a second. Oh no, it's over here. Stop sharing. So that's the principle of what's in the pack. I've also got inside the pack there at the very end a feedback form. So if when you're doing this you think there's stuff that we're doing that doesn't make sense, then you can just send me the feedback form and I can alter it, because these are quite complicated worksheets and quite complicated rosettes. And I've tried my best to structure these sessions in a logical way, and it's been quite difficult. They've not been tested on anybody. So when you go through, you might find that some of the sessions don't work as well as I would have wanted them to, or some of the resources aren't quite right, or there's something you think might be a better way of doing it. I'm quite happy for feedback, and if I get feedback, I'll alter the resources and pack them together. And so that's really what we've got. Before I go on to do anything else, I can no, one other thing I'll just show you whilst I'm still in here. I'll just remind you of let me just go back into the rosettes again. Let me just share. I'll just make a point rather than anything significant. Let me just go back into test materials. Let me share that for one moment. I'll go back into test materials. I mentioned that the normal rosettes are here. These rosettes, I've done some Key Stage 2 worksheets. So if you've got younger kids, we've got the standard rosettes, and I can show you. There's a normal syllabus of those. There's another poster. I'll show you. We've got a new poster out actually, but there's a standard set of rosettes for those. And with that, I've also got. Let me just go back up. I've also got a whole set of Key Stage 2 worksheets that link to those rosettes that you're free to download and use if you so wish. So these are probably better with Key Stage 2 kids, younger kids. I think the advanced rosettes are probably too complicated. By the way, I think the advanced rosettes will work with adults as well. They're not really, the subject matter is not really just Key Stage 3 issue. It's as good for adults as anything else. Okay.